Legend speaks of a people who can only see by moonlight, with skin as pale as snow and eyes as blue as sapphire. In post-Civil War America, one ex-soldier is about to discover the truth behind the myth of the moon-eyed people. Alright guys, so instead of doing the whole elaborate YouTuber entrance thing, I just decided to talk to you guys like humans, because I mean, that's what you are. So if you notice, I'm going to do this whole intro with the video, and then I'm going to cut the video and just read the story like I normally would. If you guys like the video portion of this, let me know down in the comments below, and next time when we do a story, I'll just do the whole video like this. Alright guys, let's get into it. One of the numerous legends of the Cherokee involved that of what we refer to as the Moon-Eyed People. The Moon-Eyed People are a legendary group of small, blue-eyed, extremely pale-skinned people who are said to have lived in the Appalachian Mountains until the Cherokee expelled them from their home. These people are said to have been unable to see during the day and during certain phases of the moon, and were builders of fortifications found near Fort Mountain in Chatsworth, Georgia. The Moon-Eyed People are noted in a 1968 historical marker in Fort Mountain State Park. Stories of the people appear in park guides and news articles of the era. And speculation of the wall located in Fort Mountain in Chatsworth, Georgia. One of the many stories about them starts shortly after the Civil War. This is the story of Thaddeus Grayson, a 35-year-old former Union soldier who was turned to exploration after the Civil War. Standing at 6 feet tall, he has a lean, muscular build that reflects his years of military service and the demanding nature of his current profession. His dark brown hair is kept short in a high and tight, and he sports a neatly trimmed beard that adds to his rugged appearance. Since the war ended, he found that he had quite a bit of time to explore the rumors of the area, being that he had no living family, and decided to take it upon himself to see if the legend of the Moon-Eyed People were true, or if it was just facts of legends told by the elder Cherokee. Grayson began this task by collecting every scrap of information that he could find, from written accounts of seeing the Moon-Eyed People to speaking with several Cherokee elders. Traveling solo, as he did not get along well with other people, it was easier to get the Cherokee to let him in with elders, as one man is not considered much of a threat. After all of his research, it leads him to the North Georgia region, now known as Fort Mountain. However, Grayson was not the only one looking for the Moon-Eyed People. A man by the name of Ambrose Thorne was hot on Grayson's trail. Following him and gaining the research through skulking in the shadows. Ambrose Thorne, a balding man in his late 40s, with a stature that you'd expect for a man once a general of the Confederate Army. Thorne lost everything with the fall of the Confederacy, and turned to exploration to regain his status as a revered member of his community, and would stop at nothing to achieve that. Grayson then prepares for a trek up the mountain, gathering provisions for what he assumes will be a lengthy journey. He stops at a local saloon for a drink, and possibly his last night in a bed for a long while, when all of a sudden Grayson is approached by Thorne, who takes a seat directly to his left, even though there were a large number of empty seats available. Grayson, completely unaware of the fact that this man has been following him for weeks. Grayson smiles coolly and says,
"How do, stranger? You're awfully close, aren't you?"
Thorne, completely unfazed by the statement, turns to Grayson with an emotionless look and retorts with his horribly thick southern accent. "What you mean? This is just where I wanted to sit. You got a problem with that?" As his hand reaches towards the pistol on his hip, Grayson, not wanting trouble before his big excursion, slowly puts a hand up and carefully responds,
"Easy now, fella. I'm just poking fun at you. There's no need for dramatics.
Thorn scoffs and returns his attention to the bartender to order a stiff drink. Satisfied that he had de-escalated the situation, Grayson pulls out his notes and begins making his trail map for the morning. Little did he know, though, that Thorn was watching his every move the whole time, memorizing the map that Grayson was writing in his mind.
I've got him now,
Thorn thought to himself as he waits for Grayson to head to the saloon's rooms for the night. But before he goes to his room, Thorn makes one last remark as he heads away.
You watch yourself out there now, partner. These mountains can be real dangerous. And little pretty boys like you don't belong out here. The people that go in them woods, they don't often come back. You ought to just go ahead and turn around now and go home there, pretty boy,
Thorn says with a slight grin on his face. Grayson, however, remained unthreatened and simply ignored him and turned around and went to his room. Grayson wakes up and carefully packs his sacks and loads up with the ride that he's arranged to the base of his map. As he begins his trek up the mountain, he observes everything around him, on the lookout for anything unusual. He stays on this mountain for nearly a month, close to giving up when he comes upon a wall of stones made deep within the forest. He found this odd, as he had not been on a trail or near another person's homestead for 2 weeks. Curious, he approaches the wall. Touching it very carefully, it was just smooth rock. Grayson decides to follow along the wall as it seems to go up for a long span and comes along a small cave opening with what looked almost like peepholes carved out of the stone wall. Growing even more curious, he enters the opening and steps into a small cavern that has 2 holes carved out on either side of the opening, illuminated by the light of the peepholes. As he steps forward, the cavern opens up just large enough for him to stand up. Along the stone walls are these weird, strange writings and symbols that seem to be leading deeper and deeper into the cave. Grayson takes out his lantern and journal to study the writings, as if he could make out what they were saying. As he writes, he hears a faint skittering behind him. He whips around to try and find the source of the sound, only to see nothing, shrugs and goes back to writing. Now a little more vigilant, while writing he hears it again, followed by an odd clicking noise like something smacking stones together. This time, when he turns, he catches a glimpse of a pale white skin darting down the tunnel. Grayson drops his journal and runs after the thing he thinks he saw, his lantern swinging in his hands as he runs, making his path more difficult to navigate and causing him to trip and fall to the ground with a hard thud. He immediately jumps back up and tries to discern where it went, only to find himself in the center of the tunnel leading in 3 different directions. He braces himself, using his military-trained ears to really listen around him. Just as he's about to pick a tunnel at complete random, he hears the clicking sound of rocks again, drawn towards the center. Grayson takes off again, this time a little slower and more carefully as not to repeat his tumble. He continues and comes to another fork in the tunnel. He stops and calls out,
"Okay, I saw you. I know you're there. Which way do I go?"
Trusting that whatever he saw was not leading him to his death. A couple of seconds of silence and the stones clicked again to the left tunnel that seemed to go further down into the earth.
"Okay then, down we go,"
Grayson said with a slight vigor. As he continues down, following the clicking stones' directions, he is led into a large cavern that is about the size of a modern football stadium, illuminated with numerous lanterns and a large fire in the center, surrounded by odd little human-like creatures, their pale skin almost glowing. Grayson stood at the edge, still concealed by the shadows as he hears the clicking directly behind him. He turns sharply to see an extremely small one of them. Holding the stones in its hands, the creature looked up at Grayson, its eyes a stunning shade of blue with almost no pupil, its oddly round head tilted to the side. He slowly gets on one knee so he is at almost eye level with the creature, and says softly,
"Well, hello there, little one. Was it you leading me down here all along?"
The creature chitters softly and clinks the rocks together twice. Grayson thinks to himself,
"I wonder if the little thing understood me."
Suddenly, out of nowhere, a childlike voice seems to emanate from inside of his mind.
I do understand you. My name is Lumen.
It says softly. Startled, Grayson composes himself and says,
"So you speak through the mind? Extraordinary. Are your elders going to be upset that I am here?"
It pauses for a moment, and then the small voice once again through his mind.
No, they knew you were here when you stepped through the door, and they sent me to lead you. They've been expecting you.
With that, Lunan turns and starts down the long corridor towards the opening of the cavern, gesturing for him to follow. Grayson follows it towards a large group near a fire in the center of the room. The cavern is silent, and he is led to another creature similar to Lunan, but obviously older. Lunan makes various sounds, like a mixture of languages all in one, and the older responds similarly and waves the small one to the side. Another voice came into Grayson's mind, slightly deeper with a more authoritative tone.
Greetings, sun person. I am Rune, leader of the Ones of Night. We welcome you to our domain within the Great Mountain. Do you come with intent to harm?
Grayson responds in a calm but collected manner, as if he were speaking to one of his old officers from the military.
"No, sir, I am merely an explorer in search of the unknown."
Rune gains what could be called a smile across its face. With a happy tone, it says,
Then what do we call you, sun person?
"My name is Thaddeus Grayson, but you can call me Thad."
Rune responds with a sigh of relief. It responds again, but this time it speaks the odd language as it speaks to Grayson through his mind.
We welcome you, Thad. Tonight, we celebrate your arrival and the new moon.
Cheers erupt from all of the creatures gathered in the chamber, and an unfamiliar music starts from the corner of the chamber. There, it was occupied by 5 of them, using different rocks and tree parts and what he assumed was animal skin and fur. They danced and sang in their language as Grayson studied them, wishing he hadn't dropped his journal from earlier. As he watched them, he became saddened by the sense of family and community these simple creatures had that he did not. He had no family, no wife, and no kids. With that, he stood and gestured for Rune to come over. Grayson, holding back his emotions, says in a shaky voice,
"Thank you for allowing me the privilege to join you and your family tonight. I have never felt the sense of community that I do here."
It responds happily.
Thank you, friend. Do you not have family?
Grayson lowers his head slightly.
No, I do not. It never seemed important to me.
Rune, seeing the sadness in him, makes a loud sound to gain the attention of the chamber. It falls silent as all of them turn to look at their leader, with it responding to the group in the loud language, but translating to Grayson's mind.
Family. Dad is alone.
The crowd of creatures began murmuring among themselves and gasping at the fact that Thad had no family. But quickly, the leader shushes the crowd.
Family, do we wish to extend an invitation on this new moon to allow Thad to join us?
The crowd erupts into cheers of agreement that made him tear up. Ruin shushes them again.
Welcome Thad to the family!
It says as the crowd swarms Thad with hugs and pats on the back, welcoming him to the family. Ruin pushes through the crowd to reach him.
So lucky you came on a new moon. The transformation process is much easier.
Thad being caught by surprise.
Transformation process? What do you mean?
He questioned. Ruin chuckled softly.
We must fix your eyes so you can see.
Thad thought to himself for a moment. He really didn't have anything in the outside world to go back to other than a lonely cabin in the middle of nowhere. Straightening himself with a smile, he says,
You know what? Alright, let's go then.
Ruin matches Thad's smile and says,
Wonderful! Let's go!
Just as they begin towards the transformation chamber, a scout comes running into the chamber screaming in their native tongue, rushing through the crowd towards Ruin. They conversed for a moment before Ruin stops and a look of pure terror washes over his face. Thad, now extremely anxious, says,
What's happened, Ruin? Please, tell me. I can help you.
Ruin turns to face Thad with his bright blue eyes wide in fear.
Lunan has been killed in the entrance chamber.
What? No. No, that can't be. Please, tell me that you're lying.
Thad says softly. He clears his throat, straightening himself, and says in a clear voice,
We must investigate this. He was just an innocent child.
Ruin, locking eyes with Thad, nods in agreement, and they make their way towards the entrance. Thad was now in full soldier mode, hyper aware of the slightest movement or sound. Pistol at the ready, with Ruin walking almost directly under Thad's raised weapon, guiding his steps forwards. As they came to the final bend, Thad stops short at the sound of boots on the rocks. Thad moves forward alone and calls out in the most authoritative voice that he could possibly muster.
Who's there? Show yourself, you coward!
A soft chuckle emanates from the corridor and a voice with a southern accent that Thad recognized.
Oh, you wound me, Mr. Grayson. I didn't know I left such an unremarkable first impression. Maybe next time I need to try just a little bit harder. Maybe next time I'll just take an ear off. What you think? You think that would leave a remarkable first impression?
Thad stops in his tracks. It was the man from the saloon. Thad clears his throat and calls back,
Well, you didn't shoot me, so I guess that's why I don't remember you. How did you find this place? And how long have you been following me?
Thorn chuckles again, this time his voice closer.
I've been following you since you left those Cherokee dogs. I knew if I followed you for long enough, you'd lead me right to them. These little disgusting creatures are my ticket back to the top. Ever since I was disgraced when the Confederacy was defeated. But now, now I have them. All of them. And I have no one to thank but you, my fine friend.
As Thorn rounds the corner with his hand outstretched as if to shake hands.
So what's it gonna be there, Billy Yank? We gonna be partners or we gonna be enemies? There's more than enough of these little critters to go around for the both of us.
Thad stares at Thorn's outstretched hand for a moment and says firmly,
I don't think so, Grayback. I did not look for these wonderful creatures for my own gain. And now that I have found them and been welcomed so warmly, I would never dream of revealing them to anybody.
Thorn did not like this response. He drops his hand and reaches for his pistol.
Well, I thought it might come to this. I guess you ain't making it out of here alive, are you, Bluebelly?
Thankfully, Thad's weapon was still locked on Thorn. Without any hesitation, he pulled the trigger with a deafening shot, hitting Thorn directly between the eyes as his body crumples to the ground. Rune, hearing the shot, quickly whips around to the corner to see Thad still standing.
You saved us. You are a true member of our family. Come, we have a transformation to complete.
As Rune leads the group with Thad directly behind him, they make their way to the transformation cavern. Smaller than the main one, but this one had a hole in the roof, allowing the stars to penetrate the otherwise vast darkness.
It's dark in here.
Thad says as he cautiously makes his way to the center where a large stone table sat. Rune stands beside the table and pats the top.
Here.
Thad lays down on the table, staring up at the hole. Rune stands on the end of the table in between Thad's feet and raises its arms as it begins chanting in their language. The group joins in and the table starts to vibrate underneath him. Thad starts to feel like he is being squished from the head and feet. He looks down and he can see his body getting smaller and smaller. His boots fall to the floor as his feet become so small and legs become shorter. Then his vision starts to become blurry.
My eyes, I can't see.
He says slightly scared.
Trust process.
Rune says softly. As quickly as it began, it was over. Thad lifted his head and rubbed his eyes. He could see perfectly in the darkness, like it was in the middle of the day.
I can see. This is amazing.
Thad said, but he realized that he spoke in their native language. The group erupted into cheers as they chanted. He could understand them all. Rune comes to him and says softly,
Do you wish a new name?
He thought for a moment and said,
Yes, I would. I would like to use the name Cyrus, as it means sun.
With a smile, Rune takes his place back on the table and shushes the group.
We welcome our new brother, Cyrus.
The group cheers and chants his new name, welcoming him home.
May you be with us for the rest of days.
With this, the legend of the Moon-Eyed People stayed just that, a legend, as he was never seen or heard from again.